Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impact Marketing Summit. I brought together some of the world's top marketing experts to share with you their new age marketing strategies and techniques that would literally change the way you perceive and implement marketing in your day to day business. My name is Vamsi Pannala, and right now I'm delighted to be speaking with Greg Blake. Greg is a copywriter from West Virginia who specializes in email and sales funnel copy, especially to cold audience. He has written copy for companies like Launch Medical, the Novus Center, e-commerce roundtable, and Collaboris, to name a few. He has introduced to copywriting through Roy Carter when he started learning email marketing with him. Since then, he had the pleasure of learning with multiple mentors, including Nikki Krozik, Kate Sitar, and Kevin Rogers, and have taken it from just an interest to a career. Greg, welcome to the summit.
Thanks for the intro, Vamsi.
Pleasure.
All right. So what I'm going to present you with today is the 3 copywriting mistakes that are costing you sales. Now, the thing with these are almost everyone is making them when they write their own copy.
Okay.
And we want to go through in this to give you the secret solution that'll stop you from making it.
Okay.
Now, if you're writing your own copy, you are making these fatal mistakes, and these mistakes will ruin your copy, which prevents you from converting into sales. They will repel your potential customers by causing them to become completely confused and not see any connection to your product or your service. They will make your product completely unrelatable, and nobody's going to want your product as a result. Ultimately, they are going to keep you from making money.
Okay.
So the goal of this presentation is to teach you to identify the mistakes, correct them, and stop making them again.
Wonderful.
So what are these mistakes? Which is a real great question, but the more important part, how do I stop doing them?
Okay.
Well, before we get into this, as Vamsi mentioned before, my name is Greg Blake. I am a copywriter from West Virginia. And when I got started into copywriting, I actually started out just doing it because I loved it. I was doing it for free for a few solopreneurs I knew and a few agencies that I was friends with. And through that, just developed and got to a point that it was actually a skill I knew I could turn into a career. Main thing from that though was I really enjoyed doing it, obviously, because anything you'll do for free is something you really enjoy.
Absolutely.
But that's led me to writing copy for companies such as e-commerce roundtable, Launch Medical, the Novus Center, 352 ad agency, Chasing Flags Digital, and that's really only to name a few. But as you've probably gathered, copywriting is kind of my thing. So now, before we get into what those mistakes are in detail, I think it's important to touch a little bit on what copy is in detail and what the goal of it is.
Okay.
And as you already know, every sale is a journey. And your copy is the roadmap that takes them from the ad to the sale. So your copy needs to be a few things. It needs to be clear and concise so that they understand every step. It needs to explain the benefits to them so that they see not just what they are getting physically, but what they're really getting. Most importantly, it really needs to speak to your audience.
Yeah.
That's how they relate to it and create the bond.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it needs to guide them through the process and address any objections that they come up with.
Okay.
Because even more deeper, it's kind of the reason it's persuasion is
Okay.
because of the fact that you're addressing these objections. And I've heard it described as an argument you're having on paper.
Okay.
So what does your client really need to know?
Okay.
Well, there's three questions that you have to answer for your customer before
Mhm.
they're ever going to buy from you. The first one is, why do I care? It needs to speak directly to what they want, what they're getting, what's in it for me, what does that mean, and what difference does it make? And those are three other questions you can ask further down to kind of eliminate down to what it is you're trying to answer.
Okay.
The next one would be, what do I get?
Mhm.
Now, in this section, you want to continue to ask these three questions of what is the benefit, what are the features, and what will it do for me? These are all important things for you to answer, obviously.
Mhm.
So the last one is, why should I buy it?
Yeah.
Why do I need it? Why do I not want to miss it? And why should I buy it now?
Yeah.
So essentially, this becomes a part of your close.
Yeah.
But that leads us up into the mistakes that most people are making. And the thing is, out of these three mistakes, if you've written your own copy, odds are you have made one of them. I've even seen copywriters struggle with writing their own copy, and we'll
Mhm.
get into why right after these. But the first one is, you do not belong in your copy.
Okay.
The truth of the matter is that nobody cares about you. They're
Mhm.
here for a product, they're here for what they're going to get for it, and that's what makes the sale.
Okay.
So, what's in it for you? Why you think it's great? Why you think they should buy it?
Mhm.
Or this is the one that most people overlook or don't fully understand, what you think is in it for them.
Mhm.
And if you notice, the core to all this is you.
Mhm.
It's uh, it's kind of something that everybody who owns a product, has a service, or is offering anything trips over and stumbles over, and it becomes really hard to see.
Yeah.
Now, the second mistake is mistaking features for benefits.
Mhm.
Basically, what does it do versus what does it do for them?
Yeah.
You want to eliminate down through each of the features of it to find out what the benefit of that feature is, and that's what we're really looking at here, and that's
Mhm.
what they need to know.
Mhm.
So this is what tells them, what are they really getting.
Okay.
I'll give you a few examples of it here, just a couple slides.
Yeah.
Now, mistake number 3, this one a lot of people struggle with, and you see it a lot in about me sections, but it's speaking at them and not to them.
Mhm.
This is the real reason why they should want it, and it should speak to what they care about in your copy, show how it applies to their goals.
Okay.
And with that one, what I'd mentioned about it being in the about me section
Mhm.
is where you start to become a little bit too much into setting yourself up as an authority, or throwing in a lot of techno babble, which that will expand on in just a minute.
Sure.
So, what causes all of these mistakes, and
Okay.
why do so many people make them?
Mhm.
Well, it all boils down to one thing: you're too close to the project. You
Yeah.
have some form of an attachment to the service, to the product, to the sale,
Mhm.
and oftentimes to the copy. So it becomes real hard to disconnect and take out things that people don't need to hear. And
Okay.
this gives you tunnel vision.
Okay.
So the result of this ends up being copy that just doesn't work. You come on too strong,
Mhm.
and you get too far into setting yourself up as the expert, and you kind of lose sight of one of the main goals
Yeah.
that your copy, your product, and even your sale
Sure.
is trying to make.
Yeah.
So, how do you stop this? Well, the first thing you got to do is get into your audience's life. You have
Yeah.
to understand what really is going to motivate them to buy, who they are, what they want.
Mhm.
You need to know their goals. You need to know what they're afraid of. Um, you really need to get into their perspective.
Yeah.
You need to get you out of your copy.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, with this, it's your about me section. That's really the only place that you should be in the copy.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not even just talking directly about the techno babble here. Here it becomes replacing I, mine, my, those ownership
Yeah.
words,
Yeah.
so that you no longer have ownership of it. Instead, what you want to do is give the ownership back to them and replace those words with my, mine, any tense like that,
Yeah.
because of the fact that not only is it going to make them relate it to themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't force them to imagine, well, what if it was me?
Yeah.
It's going to give them ownership. And anytime you give somebody ownership of something, they want to claim it. So they become more likely to buy from you.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes us right into this one, giving them ownership.
Sure.
So next, you want to think about what is important to them. What do they need to know? What do they want? What are their goals? What is it you're doing for them? What problem are you solving?
Sure.
Um, this comes from diving in a lot deeper into your audience's head, into their lives. The thing is, everybody has three things that your copy should address, which is their problem.
Mm-hmm.
You need to acknowledge it. They have some obstacle that's stopping them from getting to their major goal.
Yeah.
And what's important to them is how they're going to get past it to the major goal, because
Sure.
that major goal is also, it's very important to them to achieve.
Mm.
And that's one of the things you need to follow along and help them with, because that's what's important. And they need to understand not just that you're going to do it, but how you're going to do it.
Okay.
So ultimately, you need to change your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You need to write and read as though you were them or one of them. You
Okay.
need to figure out what they need to know, what will make them decide to buy, and anything that won't needs to be taken out.
Okay.
Now, I've seen, the reason I chose these mistakes to bring up and talk about was because I've seen this a lot in copy audits and in projects where I'm rewriting people's work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just becomes so easy to do and not even realize you're doing. Um, because again, your perspective as you sit now is as somebody who knows what comes next. They know not only what the product does, how it works, they know the ins and outs, the specs. Um, and you start to get ahead of where the copy should have them at.
Mm-hmm.
You end up giving them things they don't need to know. Like, I've seen many instances where somebody will write to not even the future, not like future pacing, but what they'll write to is what they need to know for the next offer rather than the immediate product.
Okay.
So basically, what you want to do when you're writing your copy is set out your goals,
Okay.
and each page needs one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to have your sections lined out, and each one needs to follow a certain set of steps, and each one has to meet a certain goal.
Yeah.
Um, your end goal is always, of course, the sale.
Yeah.
So everything and every little goal in between needs to step them
Mm-hmm.
through what they need to know.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that I actually recommend for people to try, and this will actually help you out greatly in achieving better and more functional copy, is right like you're having a conversation with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I know a lot of people who will name their avatars.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give them a name or an acronym,
Yeah.
and they'll write it like they're writing to them. So it'll be like a letter to an old friend.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you do this, you think about it in the same way as if you're talking to them. So you're not going to include a whole bunch of stuff they don't care about, because you know this person.
Yes.
And if you think about it in that sort of a position, you're more likely to write exactly what you need to know, because when you go up to a friend who you already know has no idea what you do. They have no idea what they'd get out of doing it. And you go to explain it, you don't start getting into all these technical specs. Well, this is, I go on and I do this, and this is what I teach, and this is how they implement it, and the tools they use, and this, you skip past all that and you start to simplify it.
Yeah.
That's really what's going to help them understand. And it allows you to write what will make them decide to buy.
Okay.
So another step is write like you're giving directions to a sixth grader.
Okay.
And the sad truth, in a lot of areas, especially the United States, the reading level is, I think, on average about fifth to sixth grade.
Okay.
Um, so, in all honesty, when you write like this, as long as you're not doing it in a condescending tone or like you're talking down to them, you're actually communicating with them on their level of
Yeah.
comfort.
Yeah.
And basically, you go through and write it the same way you would for a sixth grader so that they can follow the steps. Um, think about it as giving directions to them on, let's say, like how to paint a picture.
Mm-hmm.
There's an end goal. We're going to have the picture.
Yeah.
So how do I teach somebody with this little experience how to step this out?
Okay.
And that's what you want to follow in the pattern you want to take in your copy.
Sure.
Ultimately, you want to keep it simple and to the point.
Okay.
You don't want to go off on any side tracks or any side tangents. A lot of people tend to get lost in, they'll start moving on that exact path you need in your copy, and then you end up on a side tangent because, you feel they need to know it. And from the perspective of the person who made the product,
Mm-hmm.
you feel it's important. But the thing is, while it may be important once they have the product, it isn't to the sale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you need to look at, because if you don't make the sale, you're not helping anyone. You're just taking time from them and from you.
Yeah.
Another thing you need to do when you do this is avoid acronyms or explain them ahead of time. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to use the term MVP, don't assume everybody knows what an MVP is. If you're going to
MVPs.
use, IT, pretty much anything like that, or even just abbreviations in general.
Yeah.
These things confuse people when they see them, or they draw what they assume it is. And the thing with being on the internet is you're in front of billions of eyes all around the world.
Yeah.
And this acronym in Kansas may not mean the same as what it does in, Singapore.
Yeah.
So the guy in Singapore is now completely and totally confused.
Yeah.
That's one of the bigger things, but also on top of which, you got to remember that whoever's reading this probably doesn't have the same expertise you do. So a lot of these will just be meaningless to them.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to get across, I know I've said it once, one of the biggest things that you have to really work on doing with this is not talking down to people. And in all honesty, looking at keeping it simple to the point and giving directions like a sixth grader, if you don't focus on it, it does kind of become easy to do because
Mm-hmm.
of the fact that it's kind of like baby talking to somebody at an extent.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to insult them and turn them away quicker than what anything else will. So
You're right. Yeah.
now, one of the best ways that I can give you to check your copy and find out whether or not you've done all of this right, or you're not condescending, you're not talking down to them, you're stepping them through the sale, and you're guiding them the whole way from ad to the cart, is the buddy system. What you want to do is have a friend read it,
Yeah.
especially if you have a friend who knows absolutely nothing about what you're offering or what you're doing. It can be your mom, it can be your brother, it could be somebody halfway across the world that you associate with
Mm-hmm.
online. But you want to try to get them from either the point of view of your audience or
Mm-hmm.
below.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's going to tell you whether or not your copy is going to work. If they can explain it back to you again, then you've probably done a really good job, and you might need a little tweak here and there, but essentially you're going to see better results with that copy than what you will without. Now, the other option for it is almost every single copywriter offers what we call an audit,
Yeah.
where you book their time, we go over your copy with you, and we tell you what parts need changed.
Hmm.
So that's a second option for getting that next step.
Okay.
But hopefully, all this has helped you out greatly and will help you make better sales on your copy. Um, I'm going to give Vamsi a link if you ever need another set of eyes on your copy. I, of course, offer that service and would be happy to help.
Absolutely. Sure. So, is there a Facebook group or something that people can reach out to if they want to follow you, your work, or something like that, Greg?
Right now, I have one that I started focusing on trying to help freelancers in general, not even just copywriting, but it's one of the things we're going to start touching on in that group. You can actually go to my profile and find a link to it. It's Side Hustle Success. Um, Other than that, you can also find some of my previous work that I've done at gregbcopy.com. You'll also see some of what my clients have had to say about working with me and the results I've gotten for them.
Wonderful. I think it was very simple, very precise, and very powerful, because this is something that a lot of people unknowingly commit a lot of times when they are writing copy for their own products. And that's not something which is very uncommon, because um, a lot of people don't believe that there's a strategy, there is a system in place when you are writing a copy for your product. So I think you have really chalked out a really nice way in terms of bringing those mistakes, which also means that that's the kind of strategy that people should follow when they're writing a copy for their own products. Or probably if they believe that it's not something that they really love doing, then maybe hire people like you, or anyone that they feel are a good copywriters who can really bring out their product and get that an avalanche of sales coming down their way.
Definitely. Yeah, the main reason I chose that topic was here over just the past month, even, but the entire time I've been writing copy, I've seen it in a lot of people's sales pages, a lot of their their lead magnets. I've seen it in even store descriptions for Shopify and other things like that. And I figured this would probably help out a lot of people. Really, all it is to solving it is taking a step back and thinking about it. And hopefully, this gave you enough information to do that for your own copy.
Yes, I'm sure, because in the communities that I am a part of, a lot of people do talk about copywriting. I think that is something which is picking up pace. A lot of people really believe copywriting is also a career and not just a skill. So I'm sure your session probably would have helped a lot of people watching it right now. So I once again really thank you for taking out time to be on my summit and sharing some of these golden nuggets, so that people can learn the importance of a good copy, and how they can really increase their sales if they have done all the right things that you have covered as a part of your presentation. Really appreciate that, Greg.
No problem. And thanks for inviting me on, man. It was great to get on here and get to help some people out.
Thank you.
Hey.